Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Showcast, a series of podcast conversations from film festivals and film markets everywhere, presented by The Film Verdict and hosted by yours truly, Matt Micucci. In this episode of the Showcast from the 2023 European Film Market, I bring you two conversations that in different ways open up the floor to conversations about cinema and the audiovisual industry of the future. In the first instance, we'll be talking about uses of artificial intelligence in film production and exhibition proposed by a new company called Adapt Entertainment. In the second conversation, we will be speaking about the Nefty Award, honoring emerging filmmaking talents from developing countries. So fire up an Audiotini and listen to the audio waves as they fly through the air. This is the Showcast. Adapt Entertainment is a creative technology company that developed a proprietary AI neuro-rendering process to sync the original performance of a film or a TV series with a new language. Its goal is to broaden the global reach of content so that audiences can experience enhanced storytelling that maintains the integrity of the original project without dubbing or subtitles. We spoke about it with its CEO and founder, Darryl C. Darryl, welcome to the Showcast. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here as well.
We're right in the middle of the action, I guess, even though it's gotten quieter, thankfully, here at the European Film Market. And again, it's a pleasure to meet you and talk about Adapt Entertainment. We'll talk about this in a little while, but I'd like to know a little bit about you first. This is the first time we meet. So before we talk about how, the film world, what's your background?
Sure. Well, my background has always been in finance, but my real love was always watching films. But I really was more interested in foreign language films because I like the storytelling better. So if it was a movie like Cinema Paradiso or Secret in My Eyes or Departures, I just thought the stories were more genuine and more unique and different than what Hollywood was doing. It seemed like Hollywood was doing the same script but with different characters, and I felt that some of the storytelling that was being done overseas I thought was original. The acting was great, the cinematography was great, the directing was great, but no one seemed to want to watch them because they had subtitles and dubbing. And so when I would tell somebody, oh God, I just saw this great film, Cinema Paradiso, it was an Italian movie, and they would say, well, I'm really not interested because I have to watch subtitles. And back then, actually, what was interesting was that Miramax was the first company that was starting to bring in foreign language films to theaters. And even before that, maybe in the 60s, there was a whole culture of doing more of the French movies. But so for me, what happened was that I was more inclined to watch them, but it seemed like nobody else was interested. So I was in finance, and I had a company, we were managing money, and I had moved and opened up an office in LA. And it was a funny thing that I was invited to meet some investor on a boat. So I said, welcome to LA. And so while I'm on the boat with him, people were starting to come on the boat. He says, oh, I'm having a party tonight on the boat. Do you want to stay? And I'm thinking, nah, I'll stay for a cocktail. So while I'm on the boat, I started to meet people. And people said to me, you seem like you know more about the foreign language film business than people here in Hollywood. And you should do something with it. I said, I don't think I really want to get involved. And so someone said to me, why don't you go to film school? Because there's two great film schools in Los Angeles. There's USC and there's also UCLA. So I thought, maybe I'll go to film school and just see what it's all about. And so I was accepted and went to UCLA. And what was interesting for me was the first night that I went to school there was pre-production, and I remember sitting in the class and looking at what they were doing. I said, you know what, this is really what I want to do. I would love to get involved with the film business. And so I did that, and then I think what happened was I started to think about maybe writing stories, and I ended up selling my company and trying to get into the film business. And what happened was one night was I was watching another foreign language film. It was a Japanese movie called Departures, and it just won the Academy Award for the best film. And it was an incredible true story about this guy who was a celloist who ends up losing his job because at the time the symphony went out of business. And so he and his wife have to move into the wife's mother's place up in some town. And he felt funny that he wasn't working, so he ends up getting a job at a mortuary. And he couldn't tell his wife that he was working at a mortuary because it was embarrassing. but it was a story about how what the Japanese did when someone died, that how they went into a whole ritual about the death and it became a spiritual thing. It was an incredible movie, and I understood that why he won an award. The problem was for me was that the beginning of the movie, he's narrating his story. He's telling the story how he lost his job, and it's all subtitles. And it was reminding me of I was watching Star Wars. Like, I'm thinking, this is crazy. I'm like, how can I keep up with the subtitles and keep up with the story? It made no sense. And so what I did was I said, there has to be a way for me to figure out how can I remove subtitles from a foreign language film. So what I did was I went to VFX companies in LA and said, look, I have an idea that I think if we can take a new voiceover, that maybe we can sync it to the film. And so I think we had talked to Digital Domain, and I'm trying to remember Rhythm and Use, who actually won Academy Awards for not Crouching Tiger, but the Indian movie, I forget the name of the tiger, and they actually gone out of business. It was a very, very tough business, VFX. But so I went to some companies that said, I have this idea, and this one company called Pixel Magic said, I think it's interesting, but why would you do this? There's no money in the business. And I said, well, there's no money in the business because no one wants to go see foreign language films with subtitles. I said, maybe this can change things, right? So what I did was we went there and we did a test on a movie called Mongol, 2007 Kazakhstan movie about Mongol, about Genghis Khan, and we ended up doing a 10-minute clip of it, and it was incredible. It worked great. We were able to sync it, and I actually applied for a patent. I got a patent, but it was a very expensive process. So it was expensive and it took time, but I thought, okay, well, here's something, a new way that maybe we can change the paradigm. So that's how I got started.
And this is a fascinating thing because really it could open up a whole new world of possibilities for different markets from different places. And maybe that's something we can talk about a little later on. But first, so I want to talk about the technology behind what has become, this idea, this concept that has been brought forward by Adapt Entertainment. It involves AI. The AI is part of every discussion right now. But can you tell me a little bit about it?
So what happened is, after I had gotten the patent for the VFX sync, was that it was expensive and it was still time consuming. So what happened was, when I was living in Los Angeles, there's always these great conventions that come into town. And so one of the biggest conventions was the gaming convention. And the gaming business is huge and growing and very big. And a company called Epic Games, which is the largest gaming company, had just come out with new software called Unreal Engines. And it was a product, an engine software where they were trying to make their characters in games look more human-like. As you're playing a game, they're trying to make them look real. So I went to them and said, look, can I take this software and convert it or use it for this concept of me trying to sync a foreign language film or an English version into foreign language? Said, we don't know, but there's a scientist in Sydney, Australia, and he's the human digital guru, Dr. Mike Seymour. So I called Mike and said, Mike, I have this idea. We signed an NDA. He said, I want to go and try to change the paradigm of syncing films, from a foreign language to a new language. So he says to me, it's a kind of interesting idea. He says, but no one's doing it. But there's a guy in LA, Dr. Howley, who just built this machine that's working on avatars. He said, let's call him and let's find out if maybe he can go ahead and take this concept and maybe we can build this new technology with this new machine. So what happened was we did a proof of concept. It worked. So we were able to, so Dr. Lee for Pinscreen was able to go ahead and develop this technology that we were going to go use. So the next thing for us was, okay, so we were able to do this, but I needed to find a project or a film or something to showcase that it works. And so while there were some deep fake stuff out there that people were doing straight on stuff, no one was really able to do a full feature show or movie to take a full synchronization of the content. And so what happened was I went to the Cannes Film Festival in 2021 because there was a movie called Lamb with Noomi Rapace. And Noomi Rapace is a great foreign actor. She's Icelandic, and she just did this movie called Lamb. And I thought, well, here would be a perfect movie for me to go ahead and take an Icelandic movie and convert it into English. Noomi speaks English. We could use her voice. And A24 had bought the movie, and they wouldn't talk to me because no one believed at the time what we did really worked. because there was some people working on it. So what happened while I was in the Cannes Film Festival, I went to some other screenings, and there was this Polish movie about a true story boxer who ends up getting caught into the Auschwitz camp and ends up surviving because of his boxing skills. And I thought it was an amazing story. I thought it was a really good film. And so what happened was I went to see if I can buy the film. And before I did that, I needed to contact the director to find out about if he was willing to take his film to use their technology. So I called the director and I said, look, I have this new technology that I can take your Polish film and convert it to English to make it into English language production. And he said to me, look, it would be great because I didn't have the money to go and do an English production. So if you can take this and make it into an English production, I'm interested as long as you don't make my guys look like monkeys. So I said, I don't think we can make them look like monkeys, but let's see what happens. So I said, can your actors speak English? So he says, you remember that half the movies are German, soldiers? They were all Polish. We taught them how to speak German. So why don't we go ahead and see if we can teach them English? So we were able to get 16 of the original 23 actors to come back into the studio, learn the English dialogue. We got them a coach, so they took the next 2-3 weeks to learn their lines, and we were able to bring them back in the studio for them to reread their lines in English. So the other 6 couldn't do it, so we ended up having voiceover actors. So what was amazing about the project was, so we went back in the studio, we redid the whole film, so each actor did their scene with their English language. They were reading off the English. We were able to capture their lips and their mouth movements on 5 video cameras. So what we do is that as they're doing their lines over, we capture their faces, and we're able to take that face and put it back into the AI technology, into the machine, where the machine learns the character. And then what happens is after that voiceovers, we're able to take that new dialogue, if it's English, French, it doesn't matter what it is, and we go back and we sync it back into the original film. So what happens is we have the original film with the original director, with the original actors, the original sound, the original cinematography, the original music, all done again, but a new version in English. So it was amazing. And what happens is that the quality of the sync is amazing, but the fact that in this case we were able to use the original actors, it was incredible because it was authentic. And what was interesting for me, and we had written an article in another magazine about, it allowed me to help this filmmaker to have his film seen by a much, much bigger audience. So while he was doing it in Poland, is that now we were able to sell it to a major streamer that it got to be seen in America by many people. So for the actors, for them, it was a way to get showcased into a much bigger audience. And what was kind of funny when we were there was that one of the major actor was, we ended up going to the studio, he would say, look, I want to do another take. I don't like the way that happened. We ended up doing 7 takes on these things, and the director said to me, he didn't do that in the original. He's doing more takes on this new version than he did in the original. And so what ended up happening was like the second version, the English version, actually, he said, came out better than the first. So now you have 2 versions of the film. You have one in Polish and you have one in English. And with the technology, it doesn't matter for us if we want to do an English version or a French version. It doesn't matter because whatever actor comes in to do the new dialogue, we would go and capture that on video and then use the voiceover with the video with the original film.
So, you kind of hinted at it there, but how do you think this can impact the future of cinema?
So a couple of things. I think what's interesting is that all these foreign language films get lost in translation. I hate to use that term, but they do. And that a lot of times they don't travel over outside their country of origination. And part of it's because of the barrier of entry. And even though Parasite had won the Academy Award and did very well, I think the director talks about, well, if you kind of get through that 1-inch barrier, there's so many more movies. The problem is people still can't get through the barriers. And now, finally, I think because of Netflix, is that there are audiences in America that are accepting dubbing, that I think Squid Game did really well, and some of these other movies that people are finally watching dubbing in America. Before that, it was never done. So I think that people are starting to watch more foreign content because of dubbing, but I still think there's a long way to go. And I think the other thing that happens is that, and while we're here in Berlin, is that I'm able to meet with a lot of filmmakers that are from maybe smaller countries. I met somebody that was from Belgium or Luxembourg, and they have a hard time selling their movies. And so we think what the technology can do is we can open up the horizon for emerging filmmakers or anywhere in the world, that if I'm able to have a digital camera and I can go and shoot a movie when I want to do, that maybe we can help that filmmaker really cross that barrier of the language and use the synchronization to show that in another language. So I think that the technology can help filmmakers cross that barrier. So if I'm a small filmmaker in a small country, and maybe I'm only spending $1 million to $2 million to make that film, but I think now with the new technology, we can help that filmmaker possibly sell or have the movie distributed in other countries, especially larger countries or English-speaking countries, to a much bigger audience. So I think that a movie like Yak in the Classroom that came out of Bhutan last year, I think was lucky enough to find distribution with Sony, but I think that's not always the case. And so I think that a filmmaker from where they are in the world might be able to do a production locally, and then maybe find us or someone to help them get distribution to a much bigger audience. So I think that's the future. I think that it will help filmmakers from around the world to do that. And one of the things that I was kind of against was that what happens now is that there's always these remakes. So a film gets made in Sweden, a man called Ove, it's based off of a book that's a best-selling book. The movie is great, it gets great reviews, and no one sees it. So what happens is companies go and buy it, and they remake it, and they add on an English cast, and they take the story. Sometimes it does well, most of the time it bombs. And I think even Ruben, who did Force Majeure, which is an incredible movie, gets remade with Will Ferrell called Downfall or something. It bombs, but it makes Ruben a famous director because he's amazing. He's a writer-director. Now he does an English movie called The Triangle of Sadness. And what I'm hoping doesn't happen is that these wonderful foreign language film directors can't find the big enough audiences, so they make a movie, it gets great critic reviews, and they get brought into Hollywood to do a Marvel movie. And then you lose this wonderful original content. There's a movie that came out this year called Joyland from Pakistan. Incredible movie. It makes a short list. It doesn't get the top 5 nominations, but now people see him, they say, oh my God, this is an incredible movie, and now he's going to get represented by CAA, and he has a career. The thing is, I hope it doesn't happen where he gets taken out of that originality and gets moved to Hollywood to do another Batman movie.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but I'm also wondering, from the beginning of this journey, from when you started talking about this idea to filmmakers, to people working in the film industry, to now, have you seen, how has that reaction changed over the course of this period of time?
Well, it's a great question. I think people are afraid, with deep fakes, is that we're going to change things. And what happened here is that we're not changing anything. If the case is, if we can get the original cast back, that original cast is going to get to be seen all around the world. I think in the movie that we did called The Champion for the Polish director and the actors, we submitted to the Golden Globes, and what happened was these actors got to be in front of the Golden Globe press, and for them it was very exciting that all of a sudden they're in front of 100 different critics and stuff. So it helps that originality of the directors, the filmmakers, the cinematographers to maybe have a much bigger audience. I think that's a positive. I think that what may happen is that sometimes if a production company or streamer or somebody buys a film and they end up using voiceover actors, I think it's fine. I don't know how the original cast feels like, well, God, that someone uses, but that's what's happening today. It's happening. So if we can keep the original group in there, that'd be great. But even if that's the case, if they end up using voiceover actors, at least you're going to have the original director. You're going to have the original cast be seen. You're going to have the original cinematographer, the original sound, the original music. What was interesting about The Champion was that the film got nominated for many Polish awards, and the composer got nominated for many awards. The music was incredible. And so what happens again is that sometimes these things get lost, that they don't come to America. I think Ludwig Johansson, who's a Swedish composer, has now won many Academy Awards. But he is originally Swedish. Someone sees him, sees this incredible stuff, and they bring him onto Black Panther and stuff, and he wins an Academy Award. But they're really talented people there. And what I don't want to have happen, and this is, I guess, a criticism, is I don't want everyone to get Americanized. I want them to stay in Sweden. I want them to stay in France. And I want them to stay and do original stuff. Now, what's interesting recently was that the French government said, look, if you want to stream in our country, Netflix, whoever it is, 30% of the content has to be produced in France. So it's kind of a cool thing. Some people must say, oh, the government's getting involved, but what it's going to do, it's going to make a lot more production in France for more filmmakers in France. So it's the directors, the actors are going to have a lot more content. And so what happened was Netflix had enough of the bandwidth to go and the money to go and do that, but HBO pulled out and Paramount pulled back for a year because it's a big commitment. But I think it's very smart of the government to say, just don't come in here and and rape the country and just stream and basically take away from it. We're happy to work with you. Let's do some work together. Let's partner together. Let's do more filmmaking together. And that's what's happening. So I think if that happens in other countries, which I think will happen, I think you'll see more content come out of France and Italy and Spain and maybe Indonesia and maybe Japan and maybe Korea. I mean, think about what happened with Korea because of Parasite and because of Squid Game. You have all this new content coming out of Korea, which is incredible. So now you get to share that with the rest of the world. And we think we could be the bridge, to basically help that filmmaker show that film in all its originality, but with an English language so people can enjoy it. And they can do it now with subtitles and dubbing, but there's a big difference for having a film being adapted and synced versus a dubbed and versus subtitles. It's amazing, and people can see the champion. It's in America, but you can see it, or even going on our website. It's a big difference. I think it's a game changer. I think it's the future of filmmaking.
What is the website, just in case people want to keep up with all things Adapt Entertainment?
Thank you for asking. So it's adaptentertainment.com. And on there, you'll see the film and how we did it. You'll actually see the director do a behind the scenes talking about how it changed it for him, that he was able to now have his Polish film be seen in America. It actually was shown by a major streamer. It went to number 8 of the top 10 films of the week because of the synchronization, that people were able to watch this film, saw an incredible true story, and be able to enjoy it without getting interrupted by subtitles or dubbing. Interesting thing, just to go through this, is that subtitling is still getting done all around the world. And what's interesting for me was I just saw the movie Tar, which I thought was incredible. They use this thing called progressive subtitles. I think, what is this? So what they did was, the problem with subtitles is that sometimes the dialogue has to be shortened so it fits in the screen, and sometimes it can't get lost in the background because if you're using white subtitles and you have a white background, you can't see them. So it's been an issue in some stuff. So what Tar did was they moved the subtitles to the dark spaces on the screen. And I thought, are you kidding me? I can't even stay at the bottom of the screen to read it. Now you're moving them around? I thought it was really disturbing. It took me out of the picture. And I think the whole part of using the synchronization of the language is that I'm in the film, I see the actors, I see the action, because I'm there. I don't have to worry about anything else.
Darryl, just as a final question, I mean, we're speaking from the European film market. How is the experience? What's the experience here been like, and has it been productive?
Yeah, thank you. So we were brought in here to speak, actually, to the film festival about our technology. It's a group called the Startups. There's 10 companies here with all new technologies, which is amazing. But we did a session where over 150 people attended. But I think, again, for the filmmakers here, is that now they have an opportunity to have their film seen by much bigger audiences. So I think for them, first was they couldn't believe it. I think there's some companies out there that are trying to do it and say they're doing it, but no one is doing it. We did the first synchronized film called The Champion. So I think for these filmmakers to say there's an opportunity here for their film to get shown in a much, much bigger audience, I think has been very exciting. And actually I had an interesting call this morning with an interview with an in-flight company that represents all the middle airlines around the world, and they thought the technology can really change things, because think about it, if you're on a flight, you're not going to have subtitles, you're not going to have dubbing, and they thought, well, God, this could really change it, that we can actually have people in an airplane flying and watch a film synchronized. And so I'm thinking, well, God, we never really thought about that, but it makes a lot of sense. And so I think coming here I think the Berlin film market, unlike maybe the other ones, is a little bit more business-oriented. How can we grow the business? How we can do things? So for us, it's been incredible. We've had 20-something meetings with different filmmakers and distributors who are also trying to buy a film from a country here and to take it back to the United States or even the UK. I had a meeting with Sky Networks, which is the British pay service, where again they think this could be incredible. That if I'm buying a movie, that if I can see a movie synced, it may be more enjoyable than watching with subtitles on my TV. So it's been a great experience. We were lucky enough to be part of the startups with EFM, but it's been a great conference for us.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. It's been a great conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Neft Vodka and the International Emerging Film Talent Association presented the third annual Nefty Award at this year's European film market. This collaboration challenges filmmakers in emerging economic regions to showcase their innovative and creative skills, expand a filmmaker's reach into regions that may otherwise not have been available to them, and to showcase the diverse creative process of filmmakers from a variety of backgrounds and environments. We talked about the Nefty Award with the founder of the International Emerging Film Talent Association, Marco Orsini, and the CCO of Neft Vodka, Paul Robinson. Marco, Paul, welcome to the Showcast. It's a pleasure to meet you guys.
Thanks, Matt. Pleasure to meet you as well.
Thank you for having us here. We're very excited in this cold and dreary Berlin, EFM.
Tell me about it. I'm from Ireland. It's like I'm home.
Yeah, I'm from LA, so this is not really this is not what I'm used to.
No. It wouldn't be really. Well, we're here to talk about a really exciting award initiative. I don't know what we will call it, but we'll get into it a bit later on because this is also the coming together of two forces. We're talking about the International Emerging Film Talent Association and Neft Vodka. So it sounds like it would be two separate universes, but really they come together quite well with these awards that will be, the third edition of which will be taking place here in the Berlinale. But first, before we do that, formal introductions are required. What is, Marco, as the founder, of course, what is International Emerging Film Talent Association all about?
Well, we call it the IEFTA, and I did not come up with the name, but the IEFTA is much shorter. It's a not-for-profit association started in Monte Carlo in 2006. I was one of the founding members and was president up until past September of 2022, where I retired. We are an organization that focuses on working with emerging filmmakers and organizations and or film labs and film festivals that like to work with emerging markets and emerging filmmakers. We've had great success that a lot of the film areas that we work on were started off with filmmakers saying, I want to be a filmmaker to, my film was just chosen as the representation at the Oscars for my country. We've had great impact in countries like Sudan, Ethiopia, Egypt, Lebanon, Bangladesh, Nepal, Mongolia, just to name a few. And our partners include Marché du Film, Cannes, EFM, Rotterdam, CPH Docs, Palestine Film Lab, Amman Film Festival, Jordan, just to name a few, and Torino.
And Paul, tell us about Neft Vodka.
So actually, Neft Vodka is it's a progressive, relatively new brand that is produced in Austria. 100% of it is produced in Austria. It's an extremely pure product because all we have is Austrian water and high-grade rye. We don't put any additives or anything like that. We, in the United States, we sort of took over the brand about 4.5 years ago. And it's a brand that, we're a for-cause brand, basically. So philanthropy is a large part of our structure and our mandate. And so I started this program with Marco called Nefty, which the Nefty Awards, which I basically just stole his name because it's the Neft Emerging Film Talent International. And
works.
And it's a way to really help filmmakers in emerging economies learn more about the way to have your films made and seen, and also to be able to make films and have people see you and experience your vision in other parts of the world. So with this film competition, what I wanted to do is one of the rules of it is that they had to use Neft, the product, somewhere in their storyline. And the reason I did this is because I wanted them to have, a lot of filmmakers don't have the skill of working for a brand and having to work under brand guidelines and things like that. And you know, there's a large world out there of possibilities for filmmakers who can shoot commercially. And filmmakers who just usually shoot short films or features may not have that skill. And so this is a way to help them grow and learn new skills that can help them in other countries.
So is that the conversation that kind of started it all between the two of you that you guys had when you kind of envisioned this initiative, these awards? I
think part of it is that, Marco, I love what IFTA does. And so when he and I were talking about it, I really was trying to figure out a way that we could be involved, that Neft could be involved in actually having a brand behind me. I'm also a filmmaker, and I've been an artist for 30 years, and so it's something that's very close to my heart. But having a brand behind me really put me in a position to be able to help a lot more than if it were just me. So Marco and I were having a conversation, and out of this conversation came the competition.
Marco, do you recall that being the case exactly?
Not a word of it is true. No, what's interesting about it is that Paul and I have known each other for 30 years. We hang out with the same friends, and we were basically sitting and complaining. I was complaining about the lack of interest that northern countries, Europe and the United States and Canada, have in actually working with emerging filmmakers from these markets, as opposed to just, donating monies or caring. And he was complaining about how expensive it was to work with advertisement agencies when it comes to branding their product. And the next day we said, let's have lunch and solve the world problems, and we did, and this is where we came up with this idea. And what's come out of it is it is cross-educational in the sense, yes, these filmmakers are learning how to work with a brand, a North brand that is alcohol, and how to put the product in their commercials. But we're also learning how to shoot with what you got. A lot of things happened during COVID, and one of the main things that happened is that in the North, you kind of shut down and were freaking out. In the South, they were saying, we shoot with this all the time. We know how to shoot in genocides and civil wars and, military coups and everything else. And so, sit back, relax, let us show you how to make a film. And so there was a lot of cross-cultural exchange in this process. And the filmmakers that have come out of it, in the beginning it was IFTA filmmakers. Now they've opened it up so that they branched out and they're finding filmmakers on their own. We're kind of helping them, sort through the filmmakers, and we're helping doing some of the logistics. But here we are at EFM in 2023, where the winner is going to be announced, and two of the filmmakers who participated are actually here. That's pretty cool, and I'm hoping people can actually come and see the films that are being played tomorrow, I think, Monday. Yeah.
Monday.
Well, that's another thing that I was wondering about, and you kind of got into it a bit there, the selection process and how people can kind of participate in this.
Okay. So basically what happens is, as Marco said, IFTA goes out to their pool of filmmakers, their network of filmmakers and partners, and as well as EFM went out to theirs, and Durban has gone out to theirs, and puts the word out about our competition. All those filmmakers then apply to the competition, and what I do is I narrow it down from all this, just they apply with a synopsis. And from that synopsis, I narrow it down to my 10 favorite. And then we have a panel of judges who, very, very established judges in the entertainment industry. We have Vivica A. Fox, Bruce Cohen, who's an Academy Award and Tony Award winning producer, Ted Galliano, who's the president of post-production for 20th Century Fox and Disney. And then the fourth judge is the winner from the last year's competition. And the 10 chosen semifinalists, pitch their idea to the panel of judges. The judges narrow it down to 3 finalists. Those 3 finalists then we give each one of them $3,000 to make their 3 to 5 minute short film, and to which they use those films, and then they compete for the winning prize, which is $5,000. And then we also have an Audience Choice Award, which is an extra $2,000. So someone can win 7, or someone wins 5, someone wins 2. The only rules to the competition, it can be about anything as long as it's nonviolent and non-political. A very loose guideline is that it shows growth or humor in everyday life. But like I said, that's a loose guideline. And then the other rule is that they use the product somewhere cleverly in the storyline. The story should absolutely not be about Neff, but it also shouldn't just be sitting on the shelf over there somewhere. And what I'm loving about this is it started out as just a little, project of love, just wanting to help filmmakers, and it's turning into something a lot bigger than I expected. And this year we're probably going to do an FD Africa as well as our global one. And now like we went to Durban last year, and now we're in EFM, and we're really starting to grow a lot. And it's great because the larger we get, the more filmmakers we can help.
By the way, it sounds like aside from being a great initiative, it also sounds like a stimulating challenge for creative people. Just to here are the guidelines. They're kind of loose, but you got to adhere to them and, let your creativity shine. It's really cool. But would you guys be able to, maybe just to give an idea to our listeners, talk about this year's finalists, perhaps?
Yes, absolutely. So this year, with the help of a lot of IFTA's partners, we've really gotten a lot of applicants from places we never have before, like the Philippines, Yemen, Bangladesh we've had before, but then Vietnam and all over Africa. And I love the diversity of the filmmakers. This year we have one of the finalists was from Eritrea, one is from the Philippines. Actually, it's a team, Mick and Miko. And then the third finalist is from Algeria. And the stories are completely diverse. The filmmakers are completely diverse. Everything about it is exactly what Nefti is all about.
Never mind the drinking in these countries. Well, Philippines is fine, but I mean, it's a very Catholic-driven country. I mean, Algeria and Eritrea, I don't really, I mean, Algeria maybe, but Eritrea, there's definitely not bottles of vodka sitting on the shelf.
Well, the funny thing about that is, some of the filmmakers that applied, they're in countries that it's illegal to drink. So I couldn't really figure out how they were going to be able to be a part of this competition, because one of the things about this competition is throughout the 30 days that the filmmakers have to make their film, they have to check in with me constantly every week and to let me know how everything's doing. And it's all recorded on Zoom, and we release it throughout the entire duration of the 30 days. We're releasing episodes, 5-minute episodes sort of every day. So you can follow along kind of like a reality show about what's going on with these filmmakers, how they're making their films, what kind of hurdles they're running into and things like that. And the filmmaker that was applying from Yemen, he wouldn't have been able to do the video logs because he had to be so careful about what he said. I can't, obviously we can't have filmmakers who can't talk. But interestingly enough, in Algeria, where alcohol is legal, the filmmaker, her story was about using alcohol as a defiance because she was from a Muslim family, so wasn't allowed to drink alcohol, but the character is sneaking off and having it on her birthday party with her friends and gets caught by the aunt. And so the whole story is, basically, standing up for herself for once and, becoming an adult and standing up for herself. And she was using the product as her stand, which is interesting. And when she pitched this to us, the first thing we said is, that sounds very political, and Nefti is not about politics. And she said, no, it's not political. It's more of a social issue in this family. She said, it's a family issue. And she said, I'm going to make it. It's going to be kind of a comedy. And I was like, okay. I was like, I love it. If you can make it work, make it work.
I kind of wanted to, because this is the third, I believe, edition of the awards. As a sort of conclusive question to our lovely conversation, I just wanted to ask you, after 3 editions, of course, the winners will be announced. At the time of the recording, they haven't been announced yet, but after 3 editions of these awards, what have been the things that you've kind of realized, your take-home points, things that maybe helped you yourselves look at things in a different perspective, perhaps even something that you hadn't thought of before in what you guys did in your everyday life and activities?
I'm just going to add, because Paul is more involved in these films. I was involved early on, but I find that all the films are very self-reflective. That they all come from a position. When you're told, take a product, make it creative, put it into your story, they all make it about themselves and something that is their alter self in some capacity, whether it's body shaming or confronting their family, or one of the good ones that I love, which is what won some years ago, which was about forgetting all their camping gear and all they have is a can of vodka that they use as a hammer and for everything else. And so it's, for him, the winner at that time, it was being creative in filmmaking and how do you use different tools in order to create a film. One was about body shaming and being ashamed of their body. It's all self-reflective, which is what I've noticed in the storytelling. Because when you're challenged like that, you really have to go deep inside yourself to find something that makes your story unique to everyone else's story.
Absolutely, and it's the best, for me, it's the best if the film is very indigenous to the country in which it's being made. So I want to feel like this filmmaker is from that country, and I want to see his experiences and his or her experiences, and I want to feel like that's one reason I have them call in so often, is because and send in vlogs and things like that, is because I want the viewers to be able to feel like they're there. I would love it to. I'd love to be able to use this competition to make the world a lot smaller, and bring experiences to other lands.
Well, with that thought, I thank you very much for joining us. It's been a fascinating conversation. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Showcast, highlighting different conversations about different aspects of the cinema and audiovisual industry of the future. Look forward to more podcasts from the 2023 Berlin International Film Festival and the 2023 European Film Market coming at you real soon. And don't forget to check out other episodes of the show that have been previously uploaded if you haven't done so already. Till the next time, this is Matt Micucci signing off. See you soon.